Welcome. Today we begin this new series on shooting technique and shooting planes, shooting boards, all of that. It's a very interesting subject, and there are so many things to improve your experience of shooting. Quite possibly you've been shooting stock and finding it a little bit cumbersome, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit, not really fluid. We're going to address this in this new video series. And before we begin, please, I would like you to like this video if you find it's worth liking, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That's great help. Thanks. So, first of all, we're going to discuss three things. Dedicated shooting planes, that's one. The other one is shooting boards that go in combination with them, and I wanted to introduce you to a right shooting technique, because my students here in the woodworking school, they do it quite wrong, and they get really inconsistent results and a really bad experience overall. So let's begin with the main thing. Here you see two great shooting planes, which are, by the way, up front. You don't need these planes, but if you're in the world of small construction, box making, they come into their own, and they're super handy and a great investment. As long as you have already the core planes, which to me they are a bevel down jack plane or high angle jack plane, and also a block plane. After that, you could just get a jointer plane, which is very handy and useful. But if you're in the small scale work and you do boxes and jewelry boxes and trays and these kind of projects, you will find this to be invaluable. My students here at the school, they get to compare these planes and also to compare them to shooting with a jack plane, and they see there is a great difference, and this is so much more comfortable and efficient and effortless, that it really worth the investment. It's really worth the investment, I think, because they make life so easy, and I really wouldn't want to be without them. So let's see the differences when we compare them to a regular jack plane. So this one is made by VERITA'S, and this one is made by LIE-NIELSEN, and they have some common features. One is that they have this straight side, so that they can be actually trapped inside a dedicated shooting board this way, and then they always go in the same trajectory. So another common feature of these planes is the skewed blade. It's actually a straight blade, but it's positioned in a skewed way in the sole of the in the body of the plane, as you can see here. And this helps, this is actually introducing a shearing compound of the cut, and it cuts much more smoothly and much more effortlessly. So if you imagine this blade being completely 90 degrees frontal, when it meets the wood, it gets bang really hard along the full length of the edge. Being skewed makes everything going, kind of, it's hard to explain, but smooth. That's the best way to describe it. And that's one of the reasons why these planes, they perform so extremely well. Another feature that I think is very desirable in both planes is that they are very heavy. Okay, so this, I can tell you the actual numbers, but this is really heavy, maybe like a number 7, something like that. And this is very important because it gives you quantity of movement. Is this concept in physics that describes the relationship of an object in movement that has a certain mass. So it has mass and it has speed, and quantity of movement. It's a very interesting concept in plane performance. Really, it's It's the fact that you're using a plane that has some mass and it's going at a certain speed. And those two things together, they give it, let's call it inertia. And inertia, you need to separate the fibers, because the fibers are going to try and resist being separated. And so the heavier the plane and the fastest it goes, the easiest the separation of the fibers will be experienced by you, if that makes any sense. Usually I explain this in level 1 with my students here, as you trying to stop a large truck that's coming to you full of whatever it is, very heavy, and it's going at 30 kilometers an hour, and you can try and stop it with one hand, and you won't be able to stop it, as you know. But if what's coming at 30 kilometers an hour, so same speed, it's just a fly, you can stop it with your hand and it's going to be fine. It will not even move your hand. So the difference here is the mass times speed. So the heavier your plane, the more effortless the action is going to be. And this is a very interesting concept that we will dive deep into in a future video. But for now, what you want to know is that to avoid your faltering, you know this experience that the plane falters through the cut, it gets stopped and you don't get that clean shaping and everything becomes difficult. Much of this is reduced with increasing the mass, increasing the heaviness of your plane. Okay, so that's why these planes are so heavy, because you need lots of kind of dead blow, so to speak. Not really, but and that's another thing that makes your planes perform so well. So let's get on with the differences. The main difference between those two planes is that the VERITA'S one is a low angle plane and the LIE-NIELSEN one is a high angle plane. And so for shooting end grain, you don't really need a high angle plane. You can do that with a low angle plane. And some people might argue that low angle planes are ideal for shooting, and especially if they're trying to sell you a low angle jack plane. But as I was saying before, a low angle jack plane is going to be lighter. And especially, I can show you here, I have this low angle smoothing plane, and they even have made this kind of depression here so that you can grab it on its side and use it for shooting. And I can tell you that's going to be a very nasty experience unless you're working with very, very small wood, because this is too light a plane for shooting. You want a heavier plane. If you compare this plane, let's put aside for a moment dedicated planes, and let's compare this plane here with, let's imagine 5.5, which is quite possibly 3 times heavier than this one. The experience is that this one makes your life so much easy, and the whole thing becomes much more effortless than with this one. And if you want to go even more effortless and more precise and more relaxed, then you go to the dedicated shooting plane. Okay, so this idea of shooting with a low angle plane, it doesn't work for me, really, in my experience. And I have quite some experience now in planing techniques. I can tell you that it's not the best option. But we will devote an entire video to shooting with a regular plane, with a jack plane or with other kinds, and I'll show you a very specific kind of shooting board that will compensate for the shortcomings of these planes when it comes to shooting. Okay, so let's get back to the topic of this video. Difference between those two planes. This one is a low angle plane. This one is a high angle. It has a chip breaker, which I have actually dressed and prepared to get peak performance. And both of them, they work beautifully for end grain. Okay, you can work on end grain with almost any hand plane, provided that it is really sharp. Maybe if you're using very inconsistent timbers that kind of tend to crumble down because they are very soft, something like maybe pine or even softer than that, maybe you want to work with very low angles of working angles. Okay, but effectively this low angle plane on the blade, it has a 33-degree bevel, and the working angle here is 45 degrees, just the same as this one. So what's the main difference? The main difference comes when we're shooting edges. There's a difference here. Having a chip breaker finely set and well prepared will allow you to plane edges even against the grain with no problem. Whereas in my experience, particularly with thick shavings, a low angle plane will give you some issues, and I will demonstrate that at the end of this video. You will see. So let's get on with shooting technique, which is a very important part, and I like to explain shooting technique. Let's come in here, beginning with the shooting board. This is a kind of shooting board that I like very much, and it has this idea of a false fence, which I borrowed from the late great David Charlesworth. And this sacrificial fence allows me to fine-tune any deviation from 90 degrees. Even if I have some problems with this shooting board, let's imagine it's actually out of square, and that's quite possible when you make it, that you make it out of square. You could correct squareness just by adding some shims, or just by tapering this component here. And very commonly you don't really need 90 degrees. Sometimes you need to cope with the deviation, maybe in a carcass when you're preparing a drawer front and the drawer opening is slightly this way, then you need to make a drawer front which is slightly this way as well. And for that we can shim up, and I have a few different shims here, and I can get absolute precision here. Okay, so that's a feature that I like very much. And also, this fence here provides full support to the fibers, and it creates a zero clearance fence. So if I bring this in and I take a few shavings, okay, now I can have it fully supported. I'm going to clamp this into position, and now I take one shaving here, you see. You could hear that I removed the shaving. You can see it here, nice and thick. And now I'm not taking any more shavings. And so when I come here to square a piece of wood, which we're going to do in a minute, the fibers will be fully supported, and then they won't break at the end of the cut. So that's very, very useful here. Let's get this piece of wood, which I can check with a square. That's a very suitable square for this, very accurate. It's the STARRETT. It's a cheap version. By cheap, I mean the economy version, and I just love it. It's a great precision tool, very useful for this. And I can see very clearly there's an out of squareness, and that's because I introduced it to make this video, and now we're going to correct it. And so the first thing you want to do is to paint with a pencil, to make a few strokes here, and you will be able to see very clearly your progress, where you're working and what needs still to be squared. And then I have a prepared reference edge already. That's a straight edge that goes against the fence, and now you can see very clearly there is a distortion here. We are completely out of 90 degrees. So here's the technique. If you've found shooting to be a little bit cumbersome, not very easy, not very pleasing. That's because quite possibly you're using or the wrong plane or the wrong shooting board or the wrong technique. So I like to explain the shooting technique in 4 steps, and this way we can address every tiny detail of this whole process, which in the beginning it takes a few goes to get everything sorted out. So step 1 is to bring the piece with the reference edge against the guide. You bring it until you touch the plane. Okay, actually I should have the plane set back, and now I bring it in, and that's very important here. You want to lock it in place, but you want to stop pushing this way, and that's a very common mistake among beginners. They push with a block of wood against the plane, and the plane does that. Can you see that? So that's already out of square, and it will cause a lot of friction and lots of problems for you, and you will end up destroying the fence. So the first thing is to lock here, not keep pushing. Okay, don't keep pushing. And also another common mistake is to push with the plane that way, and this way you break the idea of 90 degrees. You're not anymore square, and you will destroy this part of the fence. And you might see here that this is not at all 90 degrees, and that's all the students that have been pushing hard against it. So the false fence also, it's a guard against beginners. So this is step 1. Just bring the piece into position, lock it, but avoid sideways force. And step 2 is just shooting, and shooting should be deliberate and fast, okay, and with a heavy plane, and that will give you the momentum you need to remove the shaving without faltering through the cut. So that's easy. Step 3 is remove the piece, and step 4, remove the plane and get back into the beginning position. Okay, so let's do it again a little bit quicker and without speaking. So that's 1, lock it, 2, 3, 4. And you can see here with 2 shavings, these are thick shavings, I can see I've done already half the work. So let's finish the work, and I'm gonna do it at real speed multiple times so that you can see. Okay, so I think you can get a sense that this is not in any way a struggle. It's easy and it's pleasing, and I remember how much of a struggle it was when I was a beginner, and how little proper information there was out there about this. And my students also, when they come here to the intensive courses, by the way, you can sign up for 2026, they discover this and they compare it to a regular hand plane, and they say, okay, that's a great addition to my toolkit. And it is very expensive though, but it's, you know, if you're making boxes or working with this type of sections and squaring things, that it's so handy, so incredibly handy and fun to use. And so let's get back to that one. This is the VERITA'S one, and I've been using this particular one. Was my first shooting plane. I've been using it for many years now, and I just love it, and I could use it for everything. Okay, this one, the LIE-NIELSEN one, is relatively new. I bought it this year, and I've been using it just enough to give you a comprehensive review. I just like it very much. When I come in here, I get it in place, and it's just every bit as comfortable as the other one. Let me just lock this here. You see, I like to have my shooting boards locked either in the tail vise or in the front vise, and so they perform almost exactly the same. there is two things I have to say about that. One is they perform nearly the same on end grain, but the price is not the same at all. This one is outrageously expensive, and it's very difficult for, especially for amateurs, to justify the cost of this, particularly in Europe, with all the tariff things and everything. It becomes really, really expensive. So for almost the same performance, I could just get that one. I love them both, by the way. And I'm not connected. I don't know anything about Thomas LIE-NIELSEN, although I'm just a great fan of his work. And I'm not related to VERITA'S as a brand, or Lee. Yeah, but I think that's just too expensive for me. There is one instance, however, where this plane will outperform that one. And this is, as I was mentioning before, when you're shooting edges, okay? If the grain goes in the right direction, that's fine. But I don't seem to be able to persuade my students that they can prepare straight edges in thin stock just with a regular hand plane holding the piece on the vise, okay? And they just love to use shooting planes, and very often I find them shooting edges as well when we're preparing stock for drawers or this kind of thing. And if you get reversing grain here or the wrong planing direction, that combined with a thick shaving, it creates a massive amount of tear out. And this plane will avoid tear out much better than that one, just because this one has a chip breaker that has been fully prepared, and it's set to perform extremely well against the grain. This one here, of course, you could raise the angle and you could kind of improve things, but I still prefer high angle planes when it comes to preventing tear out. And remember that we made a video on how to prevent tear out and the 5+1 strategies that we have. So don't miss that one neither. You will find it in the corner up there. And so I've got a funny little experiment here. I've got this piece of pine with a knot in it, and clearly there's going to be a distortion in the fiber direction here. So if I shoot this edge, you will see I'm going to get inevitably tear out in one of the two sides. So let's do that and you will see. Yeah, I can hear it, I can see it in the shaving. You see there are some gaps in there, that's the tear out. And if I come to the light, I'll see, yeah, very clearly that there's tear out in one of the two parts. Okay, so let's see what happens with the LIE-NIELSEN one. Yeah. Yeah, look at this. Even with a thick shaving, those are very thick shavings, tear out has been very significantly reduced, okay? And so if I take even a thinner shaving very soon, it's gonna completely disappear. So let's try and remove completely this tear out. For this, as you know, one of the 5 strategies to avoid tear out, one of the most important ones, is to get a thinner shaving. And by the way, with the low angle VERITA'S plane, a thinner shaving would have caused much less tear out. So we need to be fair there. Little bit more. Now we have no shaving. Trying to find a kind of a thinner shaving. Now that's a quite thin shaving. Yeah, that's spot on. You can see now, I hope these super macros, they're not only enjoyable, they take quite a lot of effort to record, but I think they will show you very clearly that this is fine. So that's a good reason to like us and subscribe to the channel, just to help us spending all this time trying to get you the best possible images. I hope this demonstrates that you can completely avoid tear out in difficult situations like this one. But now I bet you're thinking, is this really worth buying? Since I could just use a high angle plane, say a jack plane or even a jointer plane would be amazing for shooting. It's difficult to say. In the next video we're going to discuss how to get this level of performance with a regular jack plane and how to make a dedicated shooting board. That's another topic. My student Davide Fortuna, he has amazing plans that I want to share with you to make a really advanced shooting board. And yeah, so we'll cover those techniques and different techniques like shooting miters, both long and short miters, which are different, and many other things. So stay tuned for more. Thank you.